a Marmite mod. Something like this just doesn't belong on a MK6 Fiesta. Some people would love it and some people would hate it, but that is looking 10 times better now. Are you following? In the last video, I told you guys that I wanted this car to stand out a little bit more. So I fitted this decal kit from Tyrewall stickers to my Uni Royal Rain Sport 5 tyres. Now I think they look great and a lot of you did as well, but as with any aesthetic mod, there's always going to be people that don't like it and they'll sure as hell tell you about it. There's quite a few people that told me that something like this just doesn't belong on a MK6 Fiesta. So to those people, well, I'm sorry, but today is going to be another one of those Marmite mods. Now it's something that I bought quite a while ago, but I've only just managed to get my hands on it in the last couple of weeks. Now I did give you some hints on Instagram. You might even say I gave you some spoilers. That's right, I've got a Focus RS style rear spoiler. Now, for those of you that don't know what these actually are, now these weren't like an off-the-shelf thing you could buy or an option from Ford or anything like that. I think it is actually made from a real Mark II Focus RS spoiler. I think at least this bit and the top. But this piece, as far as I know, is part of one of these, chopped up and then grafted onto the Focus part. I think that's how they make them. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, it has got a couple of little scuffs and scrapes on it, but compared to some of the other ones of these that I've seen in person, this one is just so much better than what I've seen that other people have had. Like, I've seen people have a lot of problems with where they're actually bonded together and, you know, the joints kind of coming apart and cracking, and then it just kind of ruins the paint job on top as well. But this one, to me, overall, it looks really good. But either way, I'm really glad I managed to get hold of them because I know they are getting rarer and rarer, and people that have got them are either charging ridiculous money or they just want to hold on to them because they do look, in my opinion, really good. So I just really quickly want to say a massive thank you to one of my best friends, Martin, who took delivery of this for me. This was actually for sale up in Aberdeen, so a long way away from me, but luckily he's living up there at the moment and he took delivery of it for me, checked it over and paid the guy for me. So Martin, thank you so much for that and for bringing it down as well. Now I know there's going to be a few people that very kindly point out that there are a lot of cars on Instagram especially that already have one of these, so maybe mine's not going to stand out that much from them once I've got this on there, but I have got something a little bit different planned for this once it's on, so let's get it fitted. Now, for those of you that don't know, the original spoiler is just held on with a couple of bolts, one here and one here. And a hell of a lot of sealant. But luckily for me, this has been off before when we wrapped this little part up here, which I'm not sure we're going to leave wrapped, but we'll get onto that in a second once I've got this off. I did use some double-sided tape as well as the bolts when I stuck this back on. And it is putting up a little bit of a fight. But there we go. That's the original spoiler removed. But yeah, normally there's a hell of a lot of sealant underneath here that bonds it to the original paintwork. So that is probably going to be a nightmare if you're trying to get one of these off for the first time. But like I said, luckily for me, I've already had it off once before and just used a little bit of double-sided tape to stick it back on with. But yeah, onto this little bit at the top of the boot. So we wrapped this originally because the plan was always to wrap the original spoiler, but I just never got round to it. And now I'm thinking, because we never wrapped the roof and I quite like the black roof, I'm thinking maybe we should remove the wrap just on here and have this black. But I'm not really sure. I want to try and take it off just in case it damages the paint underneath, because this wrap was really sticky. I don't know. What should I mean, I'm going to ask you guys what I should do, but I'm going to have to decide before this video goes out. So I'm going to try and fit the RS spoiler on here and see what it looks like. And then if I have to, I won't stick it on. I'll just bolt it on loosely for now. And then if this has to come off, then we can take it off. So the RS spoiler actually has studs on the bottom rather than bolting up into it. You just put the studs down through the original holes, but it's not going to make too much of a difference. It's just thought that it was probably worth mentioning, but it is actually quite hard to hold it in place while I put the nuts on the back. So I'm just using a combination of flat washers, then a spring washer, and then a nut to hold it on, just so it's nice and secure, it's not going to rattle loose. Could use nylock or something like that, if I can find them. So there we go, it's just on there loosely for now. Haven't actually secured it down properly, but I just wanted to get it on here and see how it's looking. And then we can decide whether or not we're going to remove this wrap piece, and then I can get it properly stuck on there. I'm going to use some more double-sided tape and then bolt it on properly. So right off the bat, I think it is looking really good, but yeah, I'm not happy with this. I think it will look a hell of a lot better. Black all the way with the roof, black there, and then the black on here as well. So what I'm planning on doing with this to make it look a little bit different is I'm not going to leave the whole thing black. I am actually going to get a bit of color on this as well, but I'll show you that in a little bit. So first of all, I think we're going to take this back off, get rid of the wrap here. Hopefully it doesn't damage the paint, and then we can get this mounted for good. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the vinyl that we used to wrap this car was really sticky, so this made it kind of tricky to remove, even just this little piece on the top of the boot. So heaven forbid I ever have to remove the vinyl from the entire car for any reason. But a heat gun did come in super handy, and eventually I managed to get it off. Okay, so I got the vinyl wrap off the top of the boot, and it looks on the face of it like it's actually done a bit of damage to the paint. But you know what? Don't worry, that isn't where the paint's lifted. That's actually the adhesive from the back of the vinyl. So I'm going to have to do something to clean this up, but I'm going to crack on and do that. Maybe give this a little bit of a polish just so it's looking a little bit better after I've got all this stuff off, and then we can mount the spoiler. So I used some adhesive remover, a microfiber cloth, and a hell of a lot of elbow grease, and eventually I did manage to get the adhesive off. But don't get me wrong, it was a lot of work and it took quite a long time. Unfortunately, it did leave the top of the boot looking kind of worse for wear. It was all dull and a little bit scratched up, so I gave it a little polish by hand. Nothing crazy, but it actually came out really well. There were some quite nasty scratches where the spoiler actually mounts, but these will be covered by the new spoiler anyway, so I'm not too worried about those. I gave the top of the boot lid a quick clean to remove any residues left over from the polish or the adhesive remover, and while this was drying, I cleaned the underside of the spoiler with some panel prep and then applied the adhesive tape. And I used some closed cell foam around the mounting studs to stop any water getting into the boot. This is the same stuff that I used to seal my rear lights when they were leaking. With that done, it was time to mount the spoiler to the car, so I gave the top of the boot lid one last clean with the panel prep, removed the backing from the adhesive tape, and then mounted the spoiler in position for good. Or at least I hope it's for good anyway. Because this thing is massive, but to be fair, it is held on there really firmly, like it's not moving at all, so I think this is going to be just fine. Now, like I said earlier, I actually want to try and get a little bit of colour on here rather than just leaving the whole thing black. So what I'm planning to do is I'm going to make some little caps just for these ends using some leftover vinyl from when we did the wrap. I'm not going to cover like the entire end cap here. I think I'm going to leave like almost like an edge of black around it, and then just kind of have this sort of middle space here filled in with some of the vinyl. I think that's going to look really good, but let's do it and just find out. Now, there's a couple of ways that I could have done this, but I decided first of all to try and make a sort of template that I could then transfer to vinyl and then almost cut out like a big sticker, I suppose, to go on the end caps. So I covered the end caps in some masking tape and then drew around the outline of where I wanted my little sticker to go. I then carefully removed the masking tape all in one piece, transferred it to a piece of paper so it had something to stick to, and then cut this out, and this is what I would use as my template. I then transferred this onto the back of two pieces of vinyl, so I had one for each side, and so they'd be symmetrical. This is one of the reasons why I went with this method first, just so I'd have two symmetrical end caps. So once I had my little template traced out onto the vinyl, I cut these out and then offered them up to the spoiler. Once I was happy, I gave the end caps a clean with panel prep, applied a little decal, which you'll see in just a minute once the end caps are wrapped, and then it was time to wrap them with these little vinyl stickers that I made. And it was trickier than I thought it was going to be. Okay, so here it is. And as far as the style that I was going for, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with how it looks, but I'm not 100% happy with the job I've done of it. As you can see, the gap, like this black edge I've got around it, isn't really uniform all the way round, just probably because of the way I've tried to do this. This kind of dip in here and then back up probably hasn't helped either. I'm really happy with the way this like almost embossed effect is on the ST. That was a little decal I put underneath. I think that looks really good, but yeah, this side, it actually looks quite good on camera, but in person, I'm just not happy with this sort of edge being uneven all the way around. Now, this side, I'm a lot happier with. I did this side off camera, and for this one, rather than using the template, I actually used this. This is knifeless tape, the kind of stuff you've probably seen this before if you've seen other people wrapping cars. I didn't use it when we wrapped this because we just ran out of time to learn how to use this stuff, but I've used it on this and just used one big piece over the top, and then the idea is you kind of run this beforehand around where you want to cut out. You lay one piece of vinyl and then there's like a filament in this tape that you pull out and it cuts out the shape that you've laid this in, if that makes sense. If you don't know what I'm on about, go and look up knifeless tape with vinyl wrap. But that's what I used on this side. and it looks so much better. This little bit here, it's a tiny bit thicker here than it is the rest of the way around, but I knew that when I was laying it, because I thought because of the curvature of this, I'd need to bring it in a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't have done as much. And then I didn't quite get it so good down here where I had to, like, this is where I started and finished and where the tape crossed over. I didn't get a very good edge there, but overall, I think I'm really happy with how this side's come out. It was a lot easier using this stuff than it was doing it with those templates. So I think I'm going to take the other side off and then try it again. So back to the driver's side, I removed the first piece of vinyl, and luckily I managed to leave the little decal underneath intact. Then I gave it a quick clean again with a panel prep to remove any adhesive residue left over from the vinyl, and then I could run my knifeless tape around where I wanted to make the cut. I then laid an oversized piece of vinyl over the entire end cap, the same way I would lay any other panel. I also made sure they overlapped the tape on all sides. Now the trickiest bit to this is actually getting the filament started, but I made sure I left a little bit of the tape hanging out underneath the vinyl so that I had a piece to start with. I also made a little incision just before where I wanted the cut to start. I then just pulled the end of the tape at the start, leaving the filament exposed, and then I could pull this through where I'd made the slit in the vinyl and just pull it all the way around, and it just cut out so easily. And then all that was left to do was to remove the excess, remove the tape, and press the edges down. Now unfortunately it has started raining, but that is looking 10 times better now, so what do you guys think? Now, I said at the start of this video that I thought this was going to be a Marmite mod. I thought some people would love it and some people would hate it, but I've actually been posting a few things on Instagram to try and almost tease out of you guys whether or not you would like me to do this to the car without directly saying that I was going to do it. I asked you what other styling mods you want to see on this car that would really set it off after we fitted the tire wall stickers, and a lot of you actually suggested some sort of spoiler mod, and some the RS spoiler in particular. And after seeing some of those comments and responses, I did a little poll, and 80% of you said you wanted to see a spoiler mod, so there you go. So I really want to know in the comments what you guys think. Firstly, just of the RS spoiler itself, and also what you think of me wrapping these end caps and putting this little ST decal in here, which you can't really see because of the rain, but there it is. I've also added this little red strip along the top. I'm not too sure about that one, but for now, I think it's going to stay. So yeah, I really want to know what you guys think of this. Now, I really love the look of these RS spoilers. When it comes to the end caps, at first I was a bit like, I don't know. But now they're on here and I've done them properly with the knifeless tape, I can say that I like it. I like it a lot. Now, I thought Ash would have been a little bit more enthusiastic about it.
It's a bit different, isn't it?
But there's one person who I know will love it. So what do you think, Kev? I knew Kev would have my back. But what I really want to know, like I said earlier, is what you guys think of this. Does an RS style spoiler belong on a Mark 6 Fiesta ST? This is just a little reminder that we're not trying to make it look like an RS or make an RS replica or anything like that. I know it's kind of going that way, and there's a few more things that I want to do soon that'll probably make it look even more like that, but no, this is definitely an ST. I'm not going to try and call this an RS or anything silly like that, because it certainly doesn't go like one. And that brings me on to something that I just want to touch on really quickly before this video ends. So you guys know, if you've been watching for a while, probably since just after Christmas, around about New Year time, and I told you my plans for this car this year. So basically, the plan was that I want to try and increase the power quite significantly. I know everyone chases 200 horsepower, and that's what I said I was going to do, but I'm not really that fussed about numbers. I just want to squeeze a few more ponies out of this car and just make it more interesting to drive. So the plan with that is still happening. The problem I've got is, as many more of you also know, there's some problems with the engine in this car, which I have covered. There's some videos that you can go back and watch all about what is actually wrong with the engine in this car. And the plan is that the engine will be coming out and it will be getting rebuilt. But I can't do that at the minute because the Mark 7 is taking up all the space that I need indoors to do it. That is coming up as well. So I just wanted to kind of explain what's going on and why all of a sudden I've moved over to loads of aesthetic mods and a couple of interior bits as well on the ST. But that is not the sort of change of direction or anything like that. The other stuff's still going to be happening. I'm just waiting for all the little pieces to fall into place. You know what, just to go through it really quickly. So basically this car is burning quite a bit of oil, and I have diagnosed it as piston rings, so the bottom end needs to be rebuilt, and I'm just going to do the whole engine so it's just nice and fresh and ready to go for the power increase that I've got planned for it. But I can't get onto that yet because this is my other car. If you don't know what this is a Mark 7 1-litre EcoBoost that I bought crash damage from a salvage auction, and it turned out that it had some pretty serious engine damage, but I'm making a video all about that. Basically, the next step, I'm rebuilding the engine in this, and the next part of that is coming up in the next few weeks. I've already started filming it. I'm just waiting for a few bits to arrive, so that is definitely coming. So if you are interested in that, that is an update on that car. But there'll be a much more in-depth update and some more work going on this very soon. I'm just, like I said, waiting for a few parts. So as soon as this is rebuilt and everything's back together and this is on the road, then we can do what I need to do with the ST. Are you following? Well, that's the plans anyway. But for this video, it is time to end. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.